episode of the Bedtime podcast. My name is Jean Favreau, and as always, I'm joined by Bebby. We have a slam dunk episode, as always. It might be a shorter one. I know I usually say that, and then it's 5 hours long, but I did not get a chance to watch many movies this week. I did see the one for our Simian summer marathon. So, of course, you gotta watch that one. But this weekend, I saw the extended versions of the first two Lord of the Rings movies because they brought them back to theaters. So me and my dad went and saw them. So I probably won't talk about those because they're the Lord of the Rings movies, and everybody knows that they are pretty g-dang great. So I don't really know if I have a whole lot to say about them. I will say I haven't seen them in a long time. I think the last time I saw them was when I showed you them, which was maybe during COVID or before that.
I think it was before that.
So it's been a long time. I think I saw Return of the King in theaters I don't know, like a couple years ago, but I hadn't seen the first two in a long time. And I haven't seen the extended versions since the first time I saw the movies, which was maybe in 2011 or 2012. And I will say this might be an unpopular opinion. I vastly prefer the theatrical versions of the movies rather than the extended. I know there are a lot of people that will ride or die the extended versions and won't touch the theatrical ones. I think that the extended ones, while they do have some good scenes, I do think they're a little bloated. But that's fine. Some of the scenes that they add are cool, but some of them are like, I can see why they cut that for sure. But yeah, I don't think I have like anything to say. I'll say a little bit because I was kind of like taking a more critical look at these movies this time, just because they were really kind of my first introduction to fantasy. Because I was always more of a sci-fi kid, more of a Star Wars guy, or superheroes, which isn't really, I guess it's technically fantasy, but not like high fantasy like Lord of the Rings or whatever, or D&D or anything like that. And so like that was they were very instrumental in my youth of being like, wow, high fantasy can be pretty cool. It isn't just for nerds. And so like I had been riding that high for a while. I don't know if they're like as good as I remember. There's still like 4 or 4.5 star movies, but I had like Fellowship at 5 stars, and I'm like, I don't know about that. I had to kind of lower it. And I will say this, that frankly, and I know this may be a problem with the book, not just the movie, but I don't understand spoilers. Spoilers, I should say that. I caught myself right before saying a huge spoiler. Everybody's seen it, and everybody knows the story. But I don't understand why they kill Boromir. From like a writing perspective, Boromir is like the only character that had a potential for an arc in this whole trilogy, because he starts off sucky. He's basically like a representation of the power-hungry nature of man and the greediness, and like he wants to steal the One Ring for himself and for like humans to like wield that power against Sauron, but it would ultimately corrupt him and whatever. But that's like in like the first book of a trilogy, that's who you would set up to be like, they would have that redemption arc over the course of 3 books or 3 movies. He would have been a great Aragorn type character to be like, man, he started off sucky, but then you really come around to like him because he grows as a person and changes. But he doesn't really get a chance to do that because he's sucky he tries to steal the ring from Frodo in like a an act of pure greed, and then dies. I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of unfortunate because no one else really has an arc. Everyone is pretty stable, and that's fine. Aragorn in the beginning is the only real change is that he's like, I want to be a leader. I can be king now. And at the beginning, he's like, I don't want to be king. When, in my opinion, that's not a super interesting arc because we never really see him shy away from a leadership position throughout the entire first two movies. He's pretty much always been like willing to take charge. It would have been more interesting if he was kind of not like a coward, but like when an opportunity would present himself to shy away from power or from a leadership position, he would say, no, I don't want that. And like his actions would speak louder than his words because he says a lot, I don't want to be king. I don't want to have that power, but he does lead. So it kind of like goes at ends. I don't know. I'm taking a real critical look at like some of the best fantasy fiction, and I think that's important if you're going to learn anything from it. So that's what I tried to do. But they're still really good, like really, really good. I'm not saying that these are terrible movies by any means. These are like little nitpicks in an otherwise pretty flawless piece of fiction. But I just noticed it, and I'm like, this would make these already great movies even better. I think, in my opinion. So, sorry, Tolkien heads. That's just my humble opinion. But that's why I didn't watch any other movies besides the Lord of the Rings movies because I was too dang busy, and those movies are like 3 hours long. So, didn't really want to watch anything else this weekend, which I think is fair. Um, but I guess we'll start off with some gaming stuff because there was gaming stuff, believe it or not. We had Summer Games Fest. I don't think there was anything really in there that I cared about other than the Arkham game, which I already talked about, which was funny because I watched the live reaction to it. I didn't watch the whole live stream, but someone posted a clip of the like live reaction to when that Arkham trailer was going on, and it like just started. And I guess everyone in the room didn't hear the news that it was going to be just a VR game because it starts with like Gotham City and like a bat symbol or bat signal, whatever. And like people are going crazy thinking it's a new Arkham game. And then it like the Meta Quest logo comes up and like everybody stops cheering in that one moment, which is kind of funny to watch. But I'm like, how did you guys not hear about this? This was like not huge news, but like if you were interested in the Arkham stuff, you probably heard about it. So there was that. I don't think it really had anything. I think it's coming out later this year. I don't really care too much about it, even though I'm a huge Arkham series fan. I'm feeling kind of whatever, and I have a Meta headset. I'm just like, okay, it's another VR game. It's fine. It's fine. But what I'm actually excited about is that there was a new Doom game announced. This wasn't in Summer Games Fest. This was at the Xbox showcase. Um, they announced a new Doom game, the first since Doom Eternal, which came out in 2020. Feel old yet? I forgot that came
Ooh,
out 4 years ago.
that is crazy.
Yeah, that was that classic. I think it was May or March of 2020. It was like right at the beginning of the pandemic. It was Doom Eternal and Animal Crossing came out on the same day. It was the Barbenheimer of 2020.
Truly was.
And it was great. Both of those games are great. I recently replayed Doom Eternal. I had never finished it in all these years of it being out. And I had been saying for a very long time that I think that Doom 2016 is far superior than Doom Eternal. A very unpopular opinion that I will stand by. But I think Doom Eternal is actually pretty G dang good. I eventually pushed through. There are some things I still don't love about Doom Eternal, um, but I think that the combat is far superior than in Doom 2016. So this new one, it's called Doom Dark Ages. It's a prequel to the 2016 Doom. So we're still in this new timeline, I guess. It's not a new spin-off or reboot or whatever. Um, and it looks to be more of like a medieval setting. I don't know like if it means like prequel like 20 years before Doom 2016 or like 1,000 years before Doom 2016 because it's like takes place in medieval times, but they still have guns. I don't know. It's kind of interesting. I think it's coming out next year in 2025, so looked pretty good to me. And I'm a big fan of this series, at least the new entries. I haven't gone back to the old ones. Maybe I should, but I'm not going to. So that was pretty much it. That was exciting. I think there was a new trailer for the new Indiana Jones game. I'm kind of interested in that. I like machine games, other stuff like the new Wolfenstein games are pretty g dang good. So I think if anyone can make an Indiana Jones game, it's probably them. I don't know. They're just as good as anyone else I would pick, other than like Naughty Dog, but they already made Indiana Jones games. They just called them something else. Um, so that's it for gaming news. I think no Nintendo Direct yet. I think that's really the only one we're waiting for because everybody else has already done everything. But I feel like Nintendo will probably wait like a couple weeks because they don't like to do things normally ever. They'll be like, we're gonna wait until they might even wait until like August just to really throw everyone off. That seems like a Nintendo decision. So we'll keep you posted if there's anything. I feel like they gotta announce a new Mario game some point, right? Like it's been since 2017 that we've had a mainstream 3D Mario game. I
There's
don't.
one more Mario movie first.
Well, maybe. I mean, I guess you can technically count like Bowser's Fury, whatever, like that Mario
True.
3D
Yeah.
World plus Bowser's Fury. But that was like, it wasn't like a whole game. It was like half a thing. And I've heard it's great, but, you know, uh, I wonder if like the gap between Mario Odyssey and this new one is going to be longer than the gap between Mario Galaxy 2 and Odyssey. Because I think that gap might have been like 6 or 7 years. So we might have already passed it. But it's been a long time. Because yeah, Breath of the Wild came out before Mario Odyssey, and we already got a sequel for that. So I don't know. Nintendo, I'm looking at you. You just did a remake of Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door and everybody likes it. So that's good. But I would like a new 3D Mario game, please. Or a new 2D one. Actually, we did just get one of those. That was Mario Wonder. So, never mind. Give me a new 3D one, though. Anyways, let's move on to movie stuff because I did see other movies besides Lord of the Rings. And by movies, I mean movie. But before we get to that, the first entry of Simian Summer, I have to announce I've added new entries. New
Uh-huh.
entry to Simian Summer, where it's officially going to be a 10-week program, much like Alcoholics Anonymous. Um,
Great.
the final movie is going to be Every Which Way But Loose. This is a film starring Clint Eastwood and an orangutan. That is all I know about this movie. And I feel like that's all I need to know. So, yeah, that's going to be our last one. It will be updated. The whole Simian Summer Marathon, the listings and where you can find them all will be in the description or in the show notes, depending on where you're watching or listening to this. Um, so, watch them, please. You'll get to see funny monkey movies. And don't worry, at the end of this marathon, we will be ranking all of these movies based on their monkey points, which I think is only fair. So we'll start off our monkey movie marathon with The Jungle Book 2016, the Jon Favreau one. This movie, I had heard really good things, but in general, I am against live action remakes of pretty much anything. I'm against video game adaptations and I'm against live action remakes for pretty much the same reason. Um, but people were talking about this one, and I think that this movie takes kind of a different approach in that it is more of an adaptation of the original Rudyard Kipling book rather than a full-on remake of the Walt Disney original Jungle Book movie. Even though it does borrow a lot of like iconography from the original movie, which I guess makes sense. But I will say, I don't totally agree on the casting of everybody. I think in general, in the live action remake world, I feel like Disney is usually pretty good to great at casting uh, their new live action movies. Um, like that Lion King remake, even though it's stupid and it shouldn't have been made, had a pretty g dang good cast, and I don't think anyone will dispute that. I mean, Beyonce and Donald Glover as being Nala and Simba are great decisions because they're both very talented vocalists and also have acting chops. So, feels like a good decision. But this one was weird. Like nobody felt right. Um, I won't say anything. I think the kid who was playing Mowgli was fine. In terms of like child actors go, I thought that he was a pretty good child actor, especially considering that he was acting opposite like tennis balls on sticks because he was talking exclusively to animals that were not there. So that's kind of impressive. But I don't think his character really got the like writing to back it up. It was really flat. I didn't really care much for the story of this movie. Everything kind of felt rushed. But let's talk about the casting that is good and move on to the casting that is bad. Ben Kingsley as Bagheera is one of the best decisions that Disney could have ever made because, very refined English gentleman is perfect casting for. Maybe I should give like the animal because I don't know if everyone knows the names, but Bagheera is the panther that kind of, helps Mowgli, raises him a little bit, watches over him as a kid. Um, so I think Ben Kingsley is a perfect pick for that. Idris Elba as Shere Khan, the tiger, is also really, really good. Idris Elba just plays a great villain in general. And I think that shows. Um, I will say that like this movie has more to say about like the wolf pack that raised Mowgli and Lupita Nyong'o as Mowgli's mom, I guess, wolf mom. Pretty good. She's really good in most everything that she's in, if not everything she's been in. So no complaints there. And obviously, my man Giancarlo Esposito as the leader of the wolf pack is a great choice. But I will say this: this is an open letter to every single writer or casting director in Hollywood right now. Can we stop typecasting Giancarlo Esposito as like refined leadership people with like a shady edge to them? Doesn't really have anything to do with this movie because he doesn't play like a villain, But like I feel like since Breaking Bad came out and Giancarlo Esposito as Gus Fring was like such an iconic role for him, now he's just always playing that role, whether it's in The Boys or even like his appearance in the new Far Cry movie, or Far Cry game. It's like just be Gus Fring again. It's like he's like a really really good actor. Like he's in like a bunch of Spike Lee movies playing all these different types of characters. And also, he is like one of the funniest people on the planet. Why are you pigeonholing him to be like a serious evil guy? Like I want to see a comedy movie starring Giancarlo Esposito. So someone get on that and stop pigeonholing my man because he's really really good. But he's pretty good as Wolfman in this movie. But I just got to shout that out. In terms of casting that I don't really like, Bill Murray as Baloo is weird and it doesn't fit at all. Um, I like Bill Murray quite a bit. I think that in certain roles, when he is used effectively, he is very very good. And a lot of his 80s comedy movies like Groundhog's Day and Ghostbusters, fantastic. Even in like Wes Anderson movies, he's really really good because him and Wes Anderson have a pretty good relationship. What he isn't is like a soft and cuddly friend like Baloo, you know? If you're gonna cast Baloo, I don't wanna be too cliche, but you gotta cast Brendan Fraser as a lovely bear man. Maybe that's just because I associate him with being so cuddly in real life that I would just love to see that translated into an animated character. But Brendan Fraser, or maybe like maybe Keanu Reeves. I'm trying to think because you're not going to be able to completely recreate that role that the original actor did. So it's like that's tough, but maybe it has like more in line with like maybe my problem lies more in with the writing and we'll get to a little later. But also, King Louis, the orangutan fella, was originally done by, I think, I'm gonna have to look it up, but he was like a fun swing artist in the 40s. Uh, yeah, Louis Prima. Uh, he is phenomenal in that role and also a really really great singer in the original. Christopher Walken, I love you, Bubby, but you can't do a soul or a swing song, and he really falls flat on "I Want to Be Like You." He sings the song, and you know Luis Prima has that like fun swagger to him. He's able to like go you ooh ooh and have it sound fun. Christopher Walken is like forcing it out, and he's like you ooh ooh. I'm like, stop doing that. Why are you singing it like that? It just doesn't work. So that one kind of it really bothered me. So yeah, it was just like kind of a mixed bag of being like really good casting and also terrible casting. Why would you cast any of these people in these roles? So that was my big issue, I guess. But also, the writing is not as good, and maybe it's because it's based on the book and not the movie. But I think the movie is maybe one of my favorite like quote like golden age of Disney movies. Um, I haven't seen it in a super long time, but like of like that era, that's probably like one of the only ones I like. I don't really care for any of like the princess movies really. Um, so like the Jungle Book is more my speed, and it has a lot of heart to it. Um, and I feel like that's kind of absent in a lot of those early ones. Um, so it just feels a little weird. I mean, the story is still kind of the same, where it's like Shere Khan is hunting Mowgli, but although I think the motivation makes more sense in the new one, because in the old one, it's just like I want to eat a kid. Don't clip that. But I think that's
Clipping it.
I think that's why Shere Khan is like, oh, I've never I've never eaten man flesh before. I want to chow down. And so he's like trying to hunt Mowgli for that reason. Um, in the new one, they gave him a Koba backstory from my favorite film, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, where he's like, he's suffered abuse from humans in the past. Therefore, he wants to kill Mowgli so that he doesn't grow up to be an evil man, which makes sense. Uh, I guess his motivation is better in the new one, but it's just like Mowgli's going to the man village, and then he meets with Baloo, and then Baloo isn't like a friend. He's like a con artist who's like, "Yo, Mowgli, you should get that honey for me, and if you do, then I'll be able to hibernate for winter because I'm so hungry." But it turns out that bears don't have to hibernate for winter in the jungle. He was just taking advantage of Mowgli. I'm like, that doesn't seem right. Like, why did you turn my best friend Baloo into an evil scammer? Feels a little weird. And then like two scenes later, after he's like, "Yeah, I was kind of scamming you, Mowgli. We aren't. I don't know. I don't need to sleep for winter." And Mowgli's like, "I thought we were buddies. Like we're best friends. Like when were you best friends? He was using you the entire time, and it was pretty clear that he was using you the entire time. Just doesn't make sense." But I will say that Baloo's friend is a little. There's a little warthog fella, and like was it Pandolin, the little thing that is super endangered in China, that's like covered in scales. I forget what those are called. He has one of those as a little buddy, and and a flying squirrel. And the flying squirrel, for some reason, is voiced by Sam Raimi. I don't know why. I don't know if John Favreau and Sam Raimi are friends, but I you can't mistake that voice. He's like, thanks for getting that honey for me, Mowgli. You're my best buddy. That's kind of what Sam Raimi sounds like. It'd be like if like David Lynch was just randomly voicing a creature, and I'd be like,
He'd
whoa,
just be
okay.
louder than everybody else.
Yeah, which we'll talk about David Lynch a little later because June 5 happened. I
Ooh,
didn't watch it, but June 5 did come and pass. Um, yeah. So, yeah, that was a little weird. But also, let's talk more about King Louis, aka Christopher Walken, as a big ape, because that's why we're here. We're not here to talk about this stupid movie that nobody cares about. We're here to talk about monkeys. That's the whole point of this segment. That's the whole point of this podcast, really, is that we're really converting this to being more of a monkey centric podcast. So let's talk about monkey representation. How many monkey points does this movie earn? Of course, everybody knows the unit, what a single monkey point is. Every movie gets 0 or through 10 monkey points. So, for example, uh, Silence of the Lambs scores 0 monkey points. There's not even a mention of a great ape or a lemur or anything. Nothing simian at all, which is a shame. Whereas a hit film like Space Chimps or Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, for example, would score very high on the monkey points because they utilize monkeys. So, how does this movie compare to Silence of the Lambs or Space Chimps? Well, that is a good question because there's like about 20 minutes of monkey mania where Mowgli gets kidnapped by a bunch of monkeys. And then they report back to King Louis. And for those who may be a little shaky, King Louis was an orangutan, a regular sized orangutan that would have made sense for the time period. Rudyard Kipling wasn't around in the caveman era. He was around right when it was just about when it was socially acceptable to be super racist and imperialist and awful. So really, well, that doesn't narrow it down. But it was like the 40s or 30s or teens. I don't know much about him. I just know that he wrote The White Man's Burden, and every history class that I was in was like, "Did you know that there was a poem named The White Man's Burden?" Like, yes, I did. And it was written by that guy. So it's a perfect author to adapt his stories to the modern age. Um, but they took an orangutan that was in the original movie and they made it a Gigantopithecus. Now you may be asking yourself, what is this? I have never heard this phrase before, and I don't blame you because a Gigantopithecus was a ancient ape, much like a Homo erectus or something like that. That would have been a
Mhm.
descendant of humans. Very funny name. But a Gigantopithecus would have been a ancient descendant of an orangutan. But they were huge. they were they I think they could have been, if I was looking at the sizing chart, which by the way, when you search Gigantopithecus in Google, like one of the first images that shows is a sizing chart between like modern day humans, modern day gorillas, modern day orangutans. And in that sizing chart, it looks somewhat official. And for some reason, it goes humans, orangutans, gorillas, Wookiees, as if Wookiees are a real animal that we have a. Oh, well, okay. Well, every Wookiee that I know is around 8 feet tall. So that is a standard reference. Um, but yeah, so it goes Wookiees and then Gigantopithecus, which was like 12 feet tall. So very big boys. But they were around like 3 million years ago. Not exactly during the time of modern humans. It doesn't really make a difference, but it does scratch off some monkey points for being unbelievable. I want my monkey movies to to contain realistic depictions of monkeys and apes, and for that, I will have to scratch off some monkey points, even though that this 20-minute chunk does have quite a bit of monkeys, even though monkeys are not present throughout the entire movie, as they should be. As any great movie set in the jungle should have monkeys in almost every single frame, in my opinion. But they're like, nope, we're just gonna have a monkey zone. That's what the screenwriter. That's what Jon Favreau said. He's like, I don't want to have this whole movie be monkeys, even though it would make everybody happy, and it would be the best movie in the world. I'm just going to contain all the monkey mania to around 20 minutes. I'm going to have Christopher Walken sing a swing song, even though he's not cut out for it. And then I'm going to have him destroy this ancient Indian temple, um, which I, 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 I don't know if a Gigantopithecus can destroy stone like that, but I'm willing to suspend my disbelief because I have never seen one in real life. Uh, I've only seen the reference chart that compared it to Chewbacca. So that's all I'm going off of in terms of realism. But I'll just say this movie scored low on monkey points. And it was also just fine. So maybe I'd be willing to give the movie more monkey points if it was pretty G-dang epic, but it was just kind of mid. And some of the casting kind of brought it down. Some of the weird writing choices kind of brought it down. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to give The Jungle Book 2016 a mere 4 out of 10 monkey points. And I do that with a heavy heart because there is a lot of monkey fun. But you just got to have real monkeys, and they don't do that. Very, very disappointing. Very disappointed in you, Walt Disney. Very disappointed in you, Jon Favreau. So we're starting off a little bit weak on our Simian summer marathon. Hopefully, next week, when we watch the original King Kong, maybe King Kong will score more monkey points. I have to imagine that King Kong scores more monkey points because that is a monkey on a rampage. And frankly, I love nothing more than pure, unadulterated ape anger. I didn't even have that saved up. I'm very impressed with my alliteration skills. So I'm very excited for King Kong. I'm sure it won't disappoint. I just wanted to include a little bit of space so that everybody who's editing edits of our podcast, because I know that there's probably someone out there, so that they can edit that in when
FBI.
when the FBI is editing our podcast for comedic effect, so that when I say next week, I'm like, King Kong was a huge disappointment, they can cut in that footage where I say King Kong is not going to be a disappointment. And then it'll be a clean edit and it'll be nice. So I hope that you enjoy yourself. I'm very excited for King Kong. You know, I loved Godzilla. The original Godzilla was life changing. I'm sure the original King Kong will also be life changing. I'm a little worried it's going to be problematic. It came out in the 30s. I just
I'm
really,
sure it's fine.
I just really don't want to see
I know
blackface.
for a fact it's not.
I'm sure it'll be fun. No problems. I'm sure that the ape does not represent anything racist. I'm just throwing that out there. There's absolutely no way that an ape could represent anything other than the loving embrace of Mother Nature in a movie from the 30s. I have not seen any propaganda material that would depict apes as anything other than a representation of nature itself. So,
Right.
I'm very excited, and I'm sure it'll be great. And I'm sure it will get over 7 monkey points. Because that's all we care about here at the Bedtime Podcast. Maybe I should continue this rating system throughout the rest of this podcast's lifespan for every movie I ever see. I will say, most movies will rate really low. All of the Lord of the Rings movies are zeros, unless you count humans as monkeys, and it's a gray line. It's a real, I think the jury's still out on whether or not we give monkey points based on if humans are in it. That seems like a slippery slope. So I'm not going to allow it for now. But we'll let the scientists figure that one out. The scientists in the lab. But other than that, I think that's pretty much it. We can talk a little bit about the David Lynch thing. Did you watch it?
No.
I didn't either. I was very disappointed. The only thing I liked was when it came out and I saw it, we brought it up that it was coming out. Something was happening on June 5. That's one thing I love about David Lynch is that he doesn't believe in like saying the number in like its possessive form. So he doesn't say June 5th. He never says that tense of a number. He always says June 5. I don't know why, but it's just a quirk that I've noticed about him. When it was announced, and then it came out, and then it was a music video. He's doing a collab album with someone I didn't recognize. Did you recognize them?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I didn't. I don't know. But I'm not super interested in David Lynch's music. I know that's what he's mostly doing these days, which is fine, but probably just not for me. But he said it was something visual and it was a music video, and I'm like, okay, I probably should have saw that coming, but he was just so cryptic about it. But when that did come out, he posted a video and he was like, I announced on May the 30th that there was going to be something that come out that you could see and hear. And as it usually does in life, time moved forward. And it is now June 5. And that was pretty much the entire video. I got very excited when I got a notification from David Lynch Theater, my favorite YouTube channel. Unfortunately, it was not a weather report. So, kind of disappointing. But that's that. I didn't watch it, and I probably won't. I'm sure it's weird, kooky, and fun. I think there's been 2 music videos so far. I think another one was posted like today or yesterday. So, there's David Lynch content if you're interested in that kind of thing. But I'm not. Also, I want to shout out Smiling Friends because my good friends, my favorite men from Wisconsin that I brought up last week, Red Letter Media, all three of them were on last week's episode of
Yes, sir.
Smiling Friends. It was very cool. You could definitely tell which one was Rich Evans, even though they put a bunch of voice modulation on him. You could definitely tell. I think Jay from Red Letter Media tweeted something that was like, even with all of the voice modulation, you could still tell it was Rich Evans. That man's voice needs to be studied by science or something. And it's true. I don't know how that happens. He just has this very particular voice, and even with a filter on it, it doesn't change. I don't get it. But it was pretty good. I liked the episode, so it was
Great.
nice. It was nice. But I was a little worried because I knew that Mike was gonna be on that episode because I knew it was all three. But I'm like, Mike was already in Smiling Friends. He plays Desmond, the guy who's trying to kill himself in the
Mhm.
first episode. So I'm like, how are they gonna do that? Is he gonna come back? I'm glad they didn't do that. I don't want the show to devolve into reoccurring characters over and over again. But yeah, it's pretty good. But I think that's it. That's all I have. I'm going to throw it on over to Babby for his segment of the show.
Wow.
Whoa.
No monkeys. I'm trying
What?
to fit a monkey in, and there's not a lot of monkey music.
There's no ape jazz.
Ape jazz sounds like a great genre.
There's
Ape
loon
down
jazz.
tempo deconstructed club.
Oh.
That's what I want.
That's what I want
Just
too.
Arco with monkey noises over it.
They should do that. Why
It'd be
hasn't
pretty good.
Arca done a monkey album?
She hasn't done a lot in a while, actually.
What?
Maybe she's working on it.
I hope so. I'll send her an email.
Yeah, we have her email. That's why we did all the kicks.
Yeah, we were sponsored.
She was giving us money. uh, we'll start with singles. Got a wide variety of things this week. Denzel Curry. I did the thing where I'm like, Denzel's got something coming, and then he announces what it is the next day, which is really fun.
Oh.
But it is exactly what I expected it to be. It's a mixtapey kind of down south rap album with a whole bunch of features on it.
Oh yeah. Look at that.
I'm forgetting the name of the project
The King
right
of the
now.
Mischievous South Volume 2.
Yes, Volume 2. Yeah, that's coming out July 19th, and it has everybody on it. So
It really does.
every single song has features on it. So yeah, I think it'll be a fun record. I'm not expecting too much from it, and I think that is the right kind of thing to go into it with. But we got a single, Hot One, with Tia Corine and ASAP Fur.
And Sean Evans.
Yes, sampled.
Oh.
It's pretty good. Like I remember when Zoo came out, and I did not have a lot of exposure to southern hip hop in like the dirty South and like Florida. But that stuff's heavy. It is great. It has a really fantastic I don't know. It is just so like humid and heavy on the bass. And I like it. This is basically what this song is. And it's great. Denzel doesn't do too much on it, but I don't really care. It's more of a vibe than anything else. I'm not expecting like a concept or anything. I just want this to be fun, and this song is very fun. I think ASAP Ferg kills it on this thing. So, yeah, I'm excited for the record. We'll see if we want to do this on the channel or not. It would be more of a fun one.
Okay.
I don't think we'd have too much like critically to say about it.
Yeah.
But I think that's also fine. But yeah, check that out. Excited for that. Everybody's dropping this year, which is good. Got a lot of stuff coming out. Soccer Mommy, new song.
What?
Yes, sir.
I didn't hear about this.
I didn't either until it showed up on my Spotify.
What the heck?
I'm like, oh, when did this come out? So it's Lost. There's not an album attached to it as far as we know yet. It's just a
Okay.
single. But I'd imagine that there'd be something attached to it eventually. Hopefully, please, please.
Please?
Um, I mean, sometimes Forever is still incredibly underrated.
It's so good.
Um,
Why does
it's so
everybody
good.
hate that record?
People do not talk about it. Um, Color Theory is also great. She's on a good streak right now. But new song's great. Very indie folky. It's definitely less rock heavy than a lot of her other work, which I could take or leave. To be honest, I do really love her indie rock edge, um, and especially her playing with genres on the last record.
Yeah.
But this is still a nice little song. Uh, the Phoebeisms are coming through, which I don't know how I feel
Uh-oh.
about that. I feel like everybody needs to just stop and take a second. I mean, Phoebe hasn't released a record since like 2020, but there's been a lot of Phoebe records released since 2020, if you know what I'm talking about.
Are you not counting Boy Genius?
I'll count Boy Genius because that was, that did directly involve her.
Yes, it
Um,
did.
but I'm saying her style is getting overplayed.
I agree.
Yes. I think when she comes back with a new album, it'll still sound really good.
Hmm.
But I think there's a lot of, I don't want to say copycats, but that style has been very trendy
Yes.
um, ever since Punisher blew up during the pandemic, which I understand. So yeah, we'll see if this turns into anything. I'm still very excited. Love me some Soccer Mommy. This makes me
Yeah.
want Snail Mail to come back even more now too.
Yes.
Uh, Lindsay needs to get off a tour and get in the studio. I'm no longer asking. It's criminal that she is that good and that young, and she's released 2 albums and that's it. Um, but also good for her. Take your time. We'll wait. But yeah, pretty good single still. I still am jamming that. I think that was it for singles this week. We can dive into albums. We'll talk about Shrapnel first. New record, Shrapnel. Second big Backwoods release of the year, I think. Cavalier being the first. Nobody Planning to Leave, and it's fully produced by Controller 7, who I have not really been exposed to at all. Um, I don't think I've really listened to anything that his production is featured on. Um, but this is weirdo rap. Like, I'm putting that tag on it officially. I think this is one step beyond the current abstract, artsy hip hop movement going on right now. I think this has taken it way back 20 years to like true underground weirdo rap, and it does a really good job at doing that. I think. Um, I definitely think this is an improvement on their last record. Um, I think the concept here and the way everything kind of fits together works. Uh, and it does very much sound like something you'd see out of Def Jux or that kind of Fun Crusher Plus era of underground New York rap with LP and all of those guys, which is a sound I really enjoy. I don't think it does it nearly as well, but it feels like an updated version of that style for the current year, which is kind of cool to see. It feels retro, but kind of very much ingrained in the current day, which I think is what they were going for. Um, yeah, it is weird. It is awkward. The beats are strange and hardly even beats. We got a Lucid doing a really wacky flow over like not even a beat, just like a quirked up piano that you would hear in like a silent movie, like kind of do do do. It's like a very I don't know. These beats are strange. Um, it's a really good record. I need a lot more time with this. Unfortunately, this thing kind of got blown away by everything else that released this week, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
But I will come back for this. But I think Deep Space 9 Milli Pull the Pistol is very creative. I was like literally listening to this record. I'm like, this sounds like something LP would make. And then they literally reference one of the best LP songs and do like a updated version of it,
Oh.
um, which is really cool. Like they're not just remaking the song, but they're updating it for current day. And they're changing some of the lyrics, but they keep some of the same flows and they keep some of the same lyrics like to impact that the song is kind of going on the same like uh, trajectory. It's very cool. I think this was a very respectful way to do that, and I think really tapping into that era helps this record go forward quite a bit. Um, I also love Open Mike Eagle's feature on Dadaism 3. That's fantastic. Steel Pan Labyrinth is another one that's amazing. Um, and then Nutcracker Blues, Breeze Bruin and D Styles on it, fantastic. And then Uru Meadow with Elucid is just a wacky song. Um, but yeah, it's definitely a very solid record. I think Backwoods is shooting pretty good this year. I think this Cavalier album is definitely better than this and more solid, but I have not had enough time with this to really figure out where I feel. Um, but it is weird and nerdy and awkward and online and really good. So check it out if you're into any of this abstract hip hop nonsense like I am. It's at least worth your time. I'm not going to say it's going to blow your mind, but it's worth your time. Um, I think after seeing these two live too as well, it's like their personalities come through so well in this thing. But yeah, alrighty. Let's talk Brat.
Oh,
Chole. Chole. New record. I forgot it was coming out this week until you mentioned it on the last podcast. I'm like, oh my god.
yeah.
Um, yeah, time is flying by. But yeah, Brat is out, um, and it's pretty great. I think this album is getting. I don't know what's going on with this album actually. This feels like a moment, but I don't know why it feels like a moment. Um,
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff happening. I will say I love the guerrilla marketing of the like this album cover and like
It's
having the
perfect.
website where you can just enter anything in the cover and like export it like extremely easily.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's really great because people have just been putting everything in this thing. Like everybody's profile pictures are green.
Yes.
Um, this is like the classic like never post a picture of you with a blank sign, but the opposite. Like it's working so well. Um, but yeah, it's quirked up. This is I listened to Von Dutch and I didn't listen to any of the other singles because I wanted to wait for the full record. So I didn't really know what to expect when I got in here. And I don't know. The first time I listened, I didn't get much from it because I didn't even really know what was happening.
Mm.
It is very much a EDM forward record, which is not usually a positive thing when you know, especially like it draws on 2010 EDM styles, which eek, a lot of that stuff was not great.
Yeah.
um, so I was like, okay, I'm kind of vibing with it. I feel like I'm missing something. Um, went back later the same day and listened to it again, liked it a lot more. I was able to pick apart the songs a lot more. Everything felt uh, not muddied. I feel like the first listen, there was just so much going on. Every song kind of just started blending into each other, and I wasn't really sure. And it seemed like the pacing was like really off, and I felt like there was a really serious song right next to the silliest song, like club banger you've heard. So I was just like, what's going on? Second listen, loved it. It was a lot better. Third listen, I was like, okay, this is pretty great. Um, and it does get better every time I listen. It's got great grooves and the production styles are so there's such a range on here. Um, you go from like these kind of almost hyper pop esque like beats to very almost traditional EDM stuff. There's a ballad on here that has a lot of great synth work on it. I mean, we can just look at the producer list. We got A.G. Cook, we got Hudson Mohawk, Seabat guy. He's on here. Mean
Oh.
Girls might be my favorite when it comes to production, and Hudson Mohawk is responsible for that. So I
Huh.
just have to think about that. Um, we also have Gesaffelstein in here, which is crazy. Um, but yeah, the production is great. It's bouncy. It's really fun. I'm glad this album came out now. This is such a summer album.
Yeah.
But I think the record really does detail like because I know I think this album like is heightened if you've heard every single Charlie record. I have not. I've heard Crash and I've heard How I'm Feeling Now. So I mean, obviously, I know the gigantic song she was on earlier in her career. Um, was it Boom Pop or Boom Pow? Is that whatever that song was?
Fancy.
Yeah, Fancy. Um, I obviously knew that. And then obviously her gigantic kind of like switch up as an artist with 2019's Charlie. Actually, it started earlier with Pop 2 and stuff. Um, but this kind of shift from weird mainstream pop where there was nothing really exciting or unique about it, and then like joining the early roots of this PC music hyperpop sensation on the internet, being one of the leading figures in that, and then having an album like this where it does feel like a combination of the styles that I've heard from her. It's still got that a little bit of like experimental craziness, weirdness to it, but it does also have like mainstream pop appeal, um, which I think works really well with it. I think 360 was great. Club Classics is amazing. Something about there's the synths in that thing goes so dirty, and the bass notes are just ridiculous. Um, Usually, I don't like this kind of like dance music stuff because it's like that's not my vibe. I like IDM, which is I like to say electronic dance music for people who don't have any desire to dance. Um, but these
Okay.
go hard. Like they're ridiculous. Um, it and the pacing of everything is really great. I think the first time I listened, I'm like, I feel like none of this is going anywhere. But the second time I listened, I'm like, all right, this production is really great actually, and the way these songs are carried forward is great. Sympathy as a Knife is fantastic as well. Um, yeah, it's so good. Talk Talk has been stuck in my head all week. Von Dutch is even better in the context of the record. I think Von Dutch was an okay single, but like once you hear it with everything else here, like especially with Talk Talk and how smooth and kind of mainstream poppy it is, to get to this like gigantic flex song with like incredibly like industrial sounding stuff going on in it is a really nice contrast. Um, I think So I is the Sophie tribute. We've seen a lot of Sophie tributes over the years. I think this one is probably the most genuine. Um, Although I do love I Believe off of Desire. That song is so good.
Yes.
But I think this connects more with Sophie as the person and an artist in relation to Charlie and this whole kind of evolution of pop music. Because Sophie is one of the most important people next to Charlie that is influencing pop music for the past 5 years and probably the next 20 years, if I'm going to be honest. Um, I was going to go back and listen to Pearls on Insides. I just have not gone back to it yet. I definitely want to do that this week when I have time, because I feel like that record is just going to continue to like be so influential. Um, but the song is fantastic. I think it's one of the best here. It's such a good tribute, um, and very heartfelt in the middle of this record that is like about club bangers and all this. Um, Girl So Confusing is also great. Um, Man, it's so weird because this album feels like it's not anything like incredible, but the more you listen to it, it's like it has all of the kind of boxes ticked when it comes to like being catchy, being different, um, having such a variety, but also having like a pretty good deep songwriting. Like a lot of these tracks are, the record starts and it feels very like, okay, this is pure club music, like wasted at 2 a.m. in the club. And it is, but then all of a sudden you get to Sympathy as a Knife, and she's talking about buying a gun and shooting herself. But I'm like, oh my God, what's happening? And this whole thing kind of just breaks down into like her mask of using these like insane pop songs and club persona and these quirky antics, and really breaking down her character into like, what do I want to do with my life after this? And it's like, you, the weirdest thing is that I think about it all the time, track 14, where she talks about like seeing her friend, um and her friend had a child, and just like meeting her child and just like having this great epiphany, and wondering if she should like do something like that in her life. And then you have the last track, 365, which is literally a song about doing cocaine. So it's just the contrasts here are crazy. um yeah, it's a great record. I think I'm not the person qualified to talk about this record. Um, I think there's a lot of people out there that are going crazy over this and have a lot deeper of a experience and like history with Charlie. And I think that's why people are getting so much out of this record. If you're a fan of Charlie and you have been for the past 6 years, this will seem like it is one of the best records you've heard in a long time. Because I think it does draw back to like all of her styles in her entire career and kind of morphs them into this like one package. Um, so it did get the Fantano 10, which I was surprised about, but
Yeah.
I'm a little bit less surprised about the more I listen to it. I don't think I'd ever give this a 10, but like I also have not been there for the whole ride of this. Um, I do enjoy Charlie a lot. I just have not taken the time to really dig in. Um, but it is a very impressive record. I think it does live up to the hype that people were kind of putting on it. I think it's a huge improvement on Crash. Nothing, Crash wasn't bad or anything. It's just when it comes to, you know, these kind of albums, Crash is so far below how I'm feeling now and Brat to me. Um, but yeah, she should change her album covers back though on Spotify. They're all just they're all just bratified.
That's true.
Um, yeah, it's pretty fantastic. It is still one of the best things I've heard this year. I think it'll be in rotation for a while because it is just so insanely catchy. Um, it feels so weird because I'm so not the target audience for this, but like I've been jamming "Girls So Confusing" and "Mean Girls" for the past 4 days, and I feel fantastic. Um, God, it's so weird, but they go hard. Um, I think we also have to talk about the deluxe she dropped, which is Brat, and it's the same, but there's three more songs, so it's not. Um,
Great name.
I'm still not a fan of dropping deluxes like 3 days after your record. I don't
Yeah.
like it. I feel like keep it on or keep it off. But the three bonus tracks are pretty good, so I can't be too mad. And the name of the deluxe is funny, so I'll take it. Um, it is weird though, because I was just like walking around on Target, and they have a little vinyl section. It's usually like, oh, the Taylor Swifts, you got good Mad City in there, you got your Nickelbacks and
Hmm.
everything, and you just walk by and there's just neon green Brat, super low resolution, just sitting there. It stands out, which is saying something. I think using the opposite of like these intricate or like face shots that a lot of pop albums are doing right now, and just having this lime green with just default text on it, I think it works.
I
It's a,
think
it's a
so.
counterculture to what's happening right now, um, and it pays off. And you get to see the funny profile pictures everywhere. I enjoy it. Um, yeah, great record. I am digging it. We'll see how much it grows or not. I feel like once summer's over, this thing is leaving, and that'll come back the next year.
Yeah,
I don't know if I can
probably.
listen. I don't know if I can listen to back to back in anything besides summer. Um, but yeah, check it out. I was listening to back to back. I'm like, man, Jerry would hate this if we did this on the channel. Um,
I would.
Back to back is the same loop for about 45 seconds before the song goes on. It's the catchiest thing in the world, but it is so repetitive. um,
Oh.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, great stuff. Good job, Charlie. Um, Moving on, I guess we get into our microphone stuff. I think that's the. I think those are the two new albums I listened to. I think there was some more albums that came out this week. I just have not. Yeah, K Tronada. K Tronada has a new record. I want to listen to that. I just have not had the time to dig into that yet. Um, but I know we got Thundercat features on there,
Oh.
and the Childish Gambino feature on there, and an Anderson Paak and Sir feature on the same song on there.
Oh.
Um, so kind of stacked. I am looking forward to that. I just have not had the time to dig in. It was Charlie week, to be fair. You just got unlucky. Um, yeah, I think that was pretty much it that came out this week. But yeah, we can get into our microphones deep dive. Um, where do I start? I have three pieces of album this week. I don't know
Three
why I said it like
pieces
that.
of album.
Three pieces of album. Okay, I'll just go in order of which they came out. So I jumped around and I listened to the first Microphones album um, because I did skip over that one. I just went straight to the It Was Hot, We Stayed in the Water. Why I did that, I don't know. It was more appealing to me, I guess. But Don't Wake Me Up is the first one, I believe, from 1999. And I enjoy this one more than It Was Hot, We Stayed in the Water. Um, I feel like It Was Hot, We Stayed in the Water is like too similar to the Glow Part 2, but just like not as good. So there's not as much of a draw. It feels like it's kind of trying to do the same thing, but it wasn't clicking as much for me. The first half of that record is still great, but I think the second half just kind of like doesn't really do much for me. And there's a little bit of like harsh noise that I do not enjoy as much. But Don't Wake Me Up is very different. It is straight up like slacker rock, very lo fi. It's very different than a lot of the other stuff I've heard so far. Um, and it's pretty good. I mean, it, it's it's interesting seeing like because this feels like kids who are learning how to make music and just like trying to put all these ideas together, and it actually works. It feels kind of juvenile and like amateur, but it works, and I think that has a really nice quality to it. Um, it's definitely a more bright record. I think it's a lot more upbeat in the first half than pretty much anything he's done. Um, it does get kind of dark again in the last part of it, but I mean that's just kind of with how the narrative goes on this thing. Um, but we run into it's going to be so hard to talk about songs because there's another instrumental on this record. There's also "I'll Be in the Air" and "You Were in the Air," not to be confused with "You'll Be in the Air" from the Glow Part Two. Don't get that mixed up. Um, Also, we have "I Felt You." It's not "I Felt Your Shape." It's close. Um, Someone needs to help him with naming songs. Uh, it is cool though, because like it uses the same refrain in the beginning of "You'll Be in the Air," which is cool. I mean, you get to hear it twice, and it's kind of used in different contexts, and it works. Um, but it's a pretty great record. I don't know if I could pick out individual moments of it, just because these are the kind of records I just put on and like don't really look at the track list or anything. I just kind of let it flow. Um, but I was very impressed of this as like a first record, like more so than "It Was Hot." I think "It Was Hot" was good. It just was like it was a weird in between point where it didn't really have an identity to me. At least it hasn't shown me that yet. But this one is cool. It feels very scrapbooky and amateur in a way that I really like. So yeah, that one's definitely worth a listen. I feel like that's kind of underrated. I skipped over it and I shouldn't have. Um, but I made up for my mistake. So you can't get mad at me. Um,
That's how it works.
okay. Two Mount Erie records. uh, I tackled the 2009 albums this week. Um, so I think White Stag came out first. We'll talk about White Stag first, anyways. That's the first one I listened to. White Stag is an album. Barely,
Oh.
actually. It's 19 minutes.
Oh, I thought that was a review.
No,
Okay.
it is kind of a review, but um, White Stag is. It feels like a demo tape almost. It is complete, but it feels like it is definitely an in between point. I guess it did come out in May of 2009, and then Wynn's Poem came out in August of 2009. Um, but I mean, it did do a good job of setting up where he was going because this record does have a lot more. There's some droning elements. There's some more ambient moments. It's the low end of the mixes were a lot more prominent. There is a lot of good stuff on here. I think Origin and Hunting are actually really great. I think Basement Instrumental is really interesting as well. Um, yeah, it's still a record I put on. I've listened to it two or three times, but it's not anything where it's like nothing's really going to stand out to you. It is definitely more ambient and like just put it on as background noise and you'll get a lot out of it. Um, I think Basement Instrumental is really cool. It has this like it's a live recording, but it feels like the recording is happening outside of the room. So you have this like really interesting muffled effect to the whole thing. It reminds me a lot of that Godspeed side project. I think Set Fire to Flames or something, whatever that record was, where they kind of recorded in like an old broken down house, and it's just like super reverby and lo-fi and weird. It reminded me a lot of that, and I did enjoy that quite a bit. But it was a nice bridge in between because we have Wynn's Poem next, which came out like a couple months later. This is the most different record we've had so far, and I think this is a turning point for what's coming for the next three or four records, um, which I think for the better because oh my god, am I obsessed with this thing? Um, it's very different in the fact that it is still a folk record, but it is also a drone and black metal record.
Oh.
Um, I'm light on the black metal. There's black metal influence. It's very ambient black metal. Um, but it is so good. This does not even, it's not even like the highest rated or anywhere near it in his discography. And I'm like, how does it get better than this? Um, I think No Flashlight was really great. I think it gives you moments that are fantastic, but there are still some points where it gets a little, I don't want to say bogged down, but there are clearly better songs than others on that record. Lost Wisdom was really fantastic. This is also really fantastic, but in a completely different way. This is a side of him I haven't seen yet, and it's one that I really love. Um, Very atmospheric, very slow. Um, it starts with Wind's Dark Poem, which just hits you with noise. I thought I was listening to a Boris song. Um, it's good. I enjoy it. His vocals are so buried, I have no idea what's going on. Um, it does a good job of setting up the record, I think, in a way that like I finished like I almost got done with the first track. I'm like, I don't know if I like him doing this. It's like very aggressive and weird. Um, all the, like the natural human element that I love in his music was not really in that track. Um, but I think it's just a setup for Through the Trees, which is 11 and a half minute, nearly ambient piece that has just blown me away. Um, I think post rock should definitely be a genre for this thing too, because I got a lot of the same feelings from that. Um, but Through the Trees is this incredible, drawn out, ambient droning piece with these crazy electric organs, um, and just buildup of distortion and feedback. Um, it is incredible. I can't really talk about it because it's more of an ambient piece. Um, but you get off of like this crazy drum filled, guitar filled, noisy mess on the first track. And then you get to this clearing and it is just like heaven for 11 and a half minutes. Um, it is gorgeous. And then like the last 2 minutes of the track kind of falls apart and we get more of the kind of drums and things coming in. It gets a little bit darker. It's a fantastic piece. My Heart Is Not a Piece, also fantastic. This album really takes its time setting up an atmosphere before the songs really like quote unquote start very post rocky again. Um, but the lyrics of this thing are great. I think his performances are great. The whole vibe of this record is very it's a lot moodier than like his other folky stuff. His folky stuff obviously still has that folk charm to it. This very much plays in atmosphere and tone setting and all these things, and he does so good at it. I'm surprised he hasn't been cast to do like more movie soundtracks or anything because I feel like this kind of stuff just really fits it. Um, it, there's also this weird balance where you go from like really quiet to really loud. Nothing samurai sword level. I don't think it'll that transition is probably the starkest transition you could possibly make in a record. So we're not going to beat that. Um, I mean, every time I listen to Glow Part Two, it still kills me every time that happens. It's one of my favorite parts of the album when that happens, but it's still like, oh my god. Um, but yeah, Hidden Stone is good. It transitions again from like more peaceful ambient stuff to crashing cymbals and louder distorted guitars. Um, it's a good piece. I feel like the black metal elements of this record are literally like segue moments. They're not the star of the show at all, which is really weird. Like, you'd think it'd be the opposite, but um, the kind of interludes in this record being those aggressive, just drum heavy, guitar heavy tracks, and then you get to like the clearings of these fantastically written like folk tracks that are taken and used with more like atmospheric textures and stuff. Um, we have Wind Speaks, which is fantastic as well. Um, Again, just the sonics of this thing are so good. Um, Between Two Mysteries, I have to talk about that. This was this was something. Uh, he's from Washington, so this makes a lot of sense. I was just not expecting it. This is a Twin Peaks song, like through and through. Like
Ah.
they use the synth from the show within the first 20 seconds, but I'm like, okay, that's cliche. But then the song gets going, and I'm like, oh my god, the rhythm he made out of this is literally insane. You have like xylophones going, the Twin Peaks kind of like moody synth playing over, and everything just blends together, and it's just really, really, really good. Um, I think being from Washington, I think everybody in Washington is probably deeply ingrained with like Twin Peaks, since that's probably the biggest thing that's ever happened to them culturally.
What about
It's Washington.
Portlandia?
Oh yeah, whatever.
Okay.
But
Frasier?
it's really cool.
iCarly?
Yeah. Hi, Carly.
These are all just shows that take place in Seattle.
Exactly. It doesn't give the overall Washington
No,
experience like
no, it
Twin Peaks
doesn't.
does. Um, but it's weird because I felt like it was a novelty song at first, but then the more I listened to it, I'm like, oh my god, this is just fantastic in general. Um, and then you followed up with Ancient Questions, which is, oh my god, insane. It's difficult to talk about these tracks because it's like, what do I even say? It sounds great. It is meditative. It is peaceful. It's still incredibly melancholy, but oh, the the reverb guitars in this thing, the pianos, everything is just great. Um, then we have another something
Another
because why
one?
not? I think there's like a something in every single record. This something is very aggressive and one of my favorites. I didn't even know what's happening here. It's like a super incredibly distorted cymbal being played over and over again, um, and then merges into like a more ambient synth piece, which is really cool. We got Lost Wisdom Part Two, which is great. It starts incredibly heavy and kind of metalish, and then mellows out into this really gorgeous piece. And then Stone's Ode is just a great outro again. I've been floating away to this record all week. It is so good. Um, and I think this is kind of the style he's transitioning into because next week we'll have Clear Moon and Ocean Roar from 2012. And Clear Moon is rated as one of his highest in his discography. Um, and I feel like it's going to kind of build on what he's doing here with these more drony textures. So I'm very excited for that. But Wynn's poem is amazing. I love it, love it, love it. Um, this is not a thing I expected him to do. I expected him to just like fully dig into this folk area and kind of play around with different experimental stuff. But to go this hard on like more drone and ambient pieces, like it makes a lot of sense, and I'm glad he did it. It was just unexpected, and I'm like, whoa, this is like my lane again. Um, but yeah, amazing record, so good. Yeah, I also watched two documentaries
Oh.
on the man. One was like a Dutch one from like 2015, so I couldn't understand what the guy was saying, but I could understand Phil. And that's all I really need to know.
Okay.
And then I watched. There was one he put on his YouTube channel in 2022. Um, I think it's called "There's No End." It's like a 20-minute little. I don't know if you want to call it a documentary, but just like a proof of life almost. um, so the first one, the 2015 one, was just more of like one of those things where it's like a almost public television. Let's go meet an artist and see how their process works.
Oh.
Um, but it was really good. I mean, he's exactly how you expect him to be. He is like a real life Joe Pera, um,
Oh.
in the way that he carries himself. And literally, the place that he lives is a small town like that.
Oh, that's
Um,
nice.
he records in an empty church. He has the softest, funniest little voice. Um, and I'm like, oh my god, this man is just Joe Pera, but he makes really great music. um, but yeah, his process was incredibly interesting. He's got this empty church that he makes stuff in. I feel like Wynn's poem was definitely made in that church. I don't know when he started doing that. I feel like it was probably around that time. Because Lost Wisdom and No Flashlight don't really sound like that kind of. There wasn't a lot of like natural reverb in that where you do get that in a church. But like they showed his recording process, and he has all of his like recording equipment in like the choir loft, so he has to run upstairs and hit record, and then run back downstairs to get to his instrument. So he was like, at the first 20 seconds of every single song, I have to cut the 20 seconds of me running back to my piano.
Wow.
Um, which I'm like, there's a better way to do that, but I respect it. Um, but it went a lot into like his like inspirations and like different painters and artists and movements and indigenous art and all these different things. And I'm like, I love this man so much. Um, I would love to have a conversation with him about anything. He is just so cool. All of his inspirations and like he's like super into landscape painting, and I'm like, oh my god, I love this man. Um, so it was a really really nice documentary. And then the 2022 one was really great as well. I think it it's basically just him and his daughter living life and just talking about where he's going from here and how he's doing and all that, which is great. I mean, I think after living in a crow looked at me and now only a little bit too much. I think it's really nice to see them like be human beings and be okay. on video for 20 minutes. I'm like, this gives me some great closure that I don't need, but like it was nice. They live the exact life you'd expect them to. It's just like well water in the middle of nowhere, the house they built, um, going into town, doing all this random stuff. It's just nice to kind of hear where he's at and what he's thinking and what he's doing going forward. So yeah, they were very, very interesting documentaries. He's got a very calming aura, much like a Joe Pera to him. He's just nice to listen to. But yeah, I think I've got a big old idea in my noggin. I think I'm gonna do a full deep dive on the main channel once this is over,
Oh,
because I can't really put my thoughts and feelings into. I need visual aids.
sure.
I need segment breakdowns. I need clips. I need all of these different things. So you will hear my first reactions to everything here, and I will be going through every single record here. But there will be a lot more well organized and like produced video on the main channel. I think doing a deep dive video is something I've been wanting to do for a long time, but there hasn't been like an artist that has like grasped onto me to me enough to like make me want to do that.
Hmm.
Um, but I think this is deserving. I think
Yeah,
there's an interesting way we can portray it too, because a lot of this stuff is like it's feeling based a lot more than a lot of the music we talk about. So a lot of it's going to have to be like personal anecdotes and visuals and sound clips. So I think it'll be really fun to kind of put together. I haven't had like a creative project in a long time, so I'm going to kind of take
sure.
this up as that. Um, so that'll be coming. There's not a lot of YouTube video essay breakdowns on this kind of stuff as you'd think there'd be.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, the Glow Part 2 has millions of things written about it, but like past that, not much. You have Crow and you have Glow Part 2, and those are the two that have like kind of broken past this popularity barrier when it comes to like music nerds. But I think the whole discography is worth it. So yeah, that'll be my project. It probably won't come out for a long time, but this is me planting my flag and saying that it's happening, so
All
I can
right.
hold myself to it when it gets difficult. Um, but yeah, that'll be coming much later. It'll be very different, but I think the main channel is a good place to put it. It's music.
Yeah,
I
I
could
think
do a
so.
boy time mini on it, but I'd rather have visuals so I can explain things easier.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I don't think I have
Nice.
anything else to say.
I don't.
Great.
Yes, I fully support you putting that on the main channel. I think that'd be very, very good.
Yes, sir.
And I think our audience would like it. So,
Yeah. I do the thing where I start the camera and then run away and then come sit down and hold up the mic like a stand-up guy and be like, "Okay, guys."
what
Like
you
super
should do
demanding.
is start your thing and then run 20 seconds to the recording
That's
studio like
true.
that guy.
That's true.
A little Easter egg for those who have seen this
Be a character. documentary. Exactly. Which 13,000 people have.
Oh,
So
perfect.
not very many.
Oh, well, I think that's great. I don't think I've listened to anything new, so I'm still
Respect,
rocking Bon Iver, Bon Iver, Bon Iver.
of course.
Still listening to Just As I Am by William Withers.
Hmm.
And I'm gone back to Be the Cowboy. For some reason, I keep
Mm.
going back to this record just over the last couple months or so. I'm loving it more and more every day. I don't think I was that hot on it in the reaction, but man, it's really growing on me. So
Yeah, it
Mitski
should.
does
We need to reap what we sow here. We've done a lot of Mitski. Something had to have broken through.
that.
Like I don't know what it was with Mitski. It just seemed like the barrier of entry was like really high. We did 3 records and I still did not have an opinion on her.
I
I'm like,
didn't
she's
either.
extremely talented, but like, why do I not like adore this as much as other people?
Yeah, because I think like I don't know, maybe we did it in the wrong order. Because like
I
I
don't
think
know.
after
Maybe
Puberty 2, I was like, I don't get it. Like I know that everybody likes Mitski, but like I don't get that one. I need to go back to Lush because I remember of the three,
Lush is
Lush was
good.
my favorite.
Yeah.
But now I think Be the Cowboy's my favorite. But I think just this new record coming out was like, oh, okay. Now I'm
Yeah,
starting to
it
get
all
it.
clicked.
Yeah. I don't understand why it didn't click for me originally because it's all sad stuff and that's usually my jam. So I don't know, it's weird. But yeah, that'll do it for this week's podcast. Next week, watch the original King Kong. The rest of the schedule's in the description if you're interested in following along on the Simian Summer Marathon. Um, yeah. Bye.